Welcome to the UNTIED Podcast, where we unravel the knots of life with faith, wisdom, and encouragement, because together we're here to untie from tradition and embrace truth through powerful Bible teaching. My name is Garrett Bernethy. I'm one of the hosts of the show, along with two of my very good friends, Corey and Tyler. And today we're here bringing you Season 2, Episode 11. We're excited about this episode to talk about some great things that have to do with the marriage. And so today's theme is MDR, spend more time on the M. We're so glad that you have joined us today for another episode of the Untied Podcast. We thank you for joining us each week on the Untied Podcast. And so whether you're viewing or whether you're listening, we're just thankful that you're here with us today. And we have a great show in store for you. Each one of us are busy in ministry, in our families, and we're just excited to be together to be able to talk about all of those things today and share them with you during this time. And so thank you for being with us today. We're going to go ahead and kick it off and say, guys, what's been cooking?
Corey's been cooking.
Every
we have
night.
enjoyed the griddle. Yeah, we have enjoyed the griddle, to say the least.
I can't remember. Did we talk about the rice last time? I know you cooked
I think we did.
Did we? Yeah.
And then Corey's made some Philly cheesesteaks since then.
Yeah.
Had some Philly cheesesteaks, and we made patty melts the other night. Those turned out really good. Yeah, it's been quite the adventure and now I'm just looking. I've done it enough that I've got friends that are finding reels on Instagram, and they're sending me of all of these concoctions that people are making, and every one of them is like challenge accepted, and so we've got lots of big plans for sure. But anyway, it's been fun, and anything that is an enticement to make my two oldest sons and their wives want to come over to our house and spend time with us I'm going to take full advantage of that. And so that's been another blessing out of this, is they're getting fired up and excited about all the things we're cooking. But it really began with our trip to Oklahoma, though. I had wanted one of those griddles for the longest time, but it hadn't been at the forefront of my mind in a while. And then when we stayed with Tyler and Natalie, Tyler made us smash burgers that first night we were there, and watching him, and then him talking about finding it on Facebook Marketplace for next to nothing. I think you said it only been used one time by the guy that had it originally, and I'm like, maybe I could find one that I could afford. Well, there's a lot more things for sale in Oklahoma City on Facebook Marketplace than there is in Martin, Tennessee. So I wasn't having any luck, but like I said, Melody found this one on sale and had enough Sam's points saved up. We got it really cheap, and we've, like I said, we've sure enjoyed it. So, of course, the key, and y'all had told me this, is making sure that it's seasoned well, but it makes cooking on it and cleanup so easy, and so it's just been really, really fun to have.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to do our home study next Monday, and I always just try and have a mini ready. And we're going to do breakfast on it. And I've done that once before. And man, just the cleanup makes things so much easier with that. The other night we were cooking, I forget what we were even cooking, but we were doing chicken spaghetti for home study. And good night, I forgot how much I hated cleaning up. We had like 4 pots, 2 pans, all the measuring stuff. I mean, everything that goes with it. And then I brought out kind of the tabletop griddle to keep everything warm. It was just awful trying to clean up all of that.
Yeah.
And with those griddles, it's so nice. You just scrape everything off, crank up the heat, let it all burn off, re-season, and you're good to go.
And the other good thing about it, too, is there's so much, when you're having a big group over, but even when just my family, you can cook everything right there. So how quickly you can get everything. We did fajitas the other night, and I've got onions and peppers cooking here, and I've got jalapenos cooking here, and I've got shrimp cooking here, and chicken cooking here, and then we just mix it all together, and but it's nice like I said, that there's no pots, pans. We throw everything in one of those aluminum pans and then throw that in the dishwasher and we're done, So
I'm trying to think of, because I'm going to start with Natalie quitting her job with our baby on the way. I'm going to go back to a little bit of welding and start doing that on the side. So I'm trying to figure out what can I do to this thing to make it better in terms of adding stuff or modifying it.
This is where Tim the Toolman Taylor comes to life.
Yeah. And I was thinking, man, it would be cool to have a little deep fry station on there. Is there a way that I could make like a modular, almost like pan that you set in there and then you can have a deep fryer going at the same time? Because all you need is just a pan full of oil and it gets hot enough and then you can start deep frying stuff. So I don't know. We'll see.
Do you have
more power?
Yeah, you need more power. Bigger tanks. Do you have like a fish frying contraption over at your place where you can fry stuff?
I don't know. I don't know about Corey, but
I do. I'm wondering, isn't there an Air Force base in Oklahoma City?
Yeah.
Tinker
Air Force
Base. If you could get like a jet engine and put underneath there, that would give it more power.
See, I'm already thinking mine cooks fast enough. I mean, there are times where I'm really moving, trying to get everything not burnt.
Trying to get everything not burnt. That's right.
Trying to get everything cooked, but not burnt.
Cooked and not burnt. Oh, well, it is fishing season for sure. So the fish fryers have got to be on the move. So it's always I love using mine. I've do everything in there. Fish, you can do chicken fried steak. You can, all kind of anything, right? But it's really nice to have one of those. I don't think it'd be too hard to put it on the side of that thing. To be honest. Yeah. Just weld some egg liner or something over there and set it down and put you a burner under it, and there you go.
Right. Yeah. Figure out a way to tee off the gas and then have a separate turn on over there.
Tyler's going to have a complete outdoor kitchen.
Then it'd be really cool to put a smoker on there too. So you got a smoker, a deep fryer, and the griddle.
Oh my goodness!
The ultimate
then make
grill.
you a metal box you can sit up there.
Long.
Make you a metal box. Make you a metal box that you can sit on there for a little pizza oven.
Yeah,
there you go.
They've got some nice pizza ovens. I was over at Sam's the other day, and they had one sitting out.
Yeah,
pretty nice. You should add.
I know our struggle.
Don't stop with the smoker. Put the pizza oven on there. You need to get
our
a
struggle
rotisserie
with
deal going.
Yeah, the pizza oven. We just like all the pizza places in Oklahoma. We love going to Hall's, and you can buy per slice there, so it's like $4.50 a slice. We love going to Empire, and so between those two, we feel like we're pretty much set with pizza.
Yeah,
but that would be cool. I'd like to entertain the idea of making your own. The struggle with pizza is just getting the dough right. It's all in the dough.
Yes. Yeah. We looked at how much it would cost to have a Bojo's pizza delivered to us at, they'll ship those pizzas in dry ice.
Oh, wow.
We looked at seeing what it would cost to send it to Tennessee. It was way more than $4.50 a slice, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
We decided it wasn't worth it. We weren't missing Bojo's quite as badly as we thought we were.
Yeah.
You know how sometimes you say, I'd give anything to have a piece of Bojo's pizza. And then you look at how much it costs. You're like, I guess I wouldn't give anything. So, there is a limit. So.
Yep.
Small limit. Oh. Well, it is definitely cooking season. Eating season. So
Yeah, it's the temperatures right now, at least here, and I presume it's not too different from where y'all are, is that it's warm enough in the day, you can do whatever you want to and you're fine. And then right about supper time is when it drops down to about 60 degrees. So you don't have to worry about flies and bugs outside. You know, you can just stand out there in your shorts and a long sleeve t-shirt and it's comfortable and, you know, I love it.
Yeah.
Love
it's
it, love
a good
it.
time of year. It's not as good as fall, but it's good.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Tennessee and Oklahoma are very similar weather-wise.
Mm-hmm.
Like more so
Yeah, especially
than
with all
even
the-
Arkansas. Arkansas, there's just never any wind at all. There's just different over there, I think. But Tennessee, I think, we're very similar.
Especially with
Yeah,
all the
I think we
tornadoes
get
in Tennessee.
Yeah.
We get a lot more moisture
Yes.
typically
yes.
from the Gulf of Mexico coming up. But other than that, you know, it's as far as the heat and temperature wise, it's about the same for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, guys, we've got a lot to talk about with our theme today.
Mm-hmm.
But first, as we usually do every other episode, we have some books that we would like to share with you that hopefully will bless you in some way if you're looking for some good reading material as you continue on your journey to learn and to grow in many areas of your life. And so that's one reason why we thought this would be a good opportunity for us to do that this season, to give you some of the books that we think are good and would be a blessing to you as you grow in your own spiritual walk. And so this week we've got I believe Corey going first to share a couple of his picks of the week. So Corey, we'll turn it over to you.
Well, these books are, both of them, two of my favorite that I occasionally pull down and read to help myself. But they're both directed toward preachers, although I will say that they're not just for preachers. I think they would be good for anyone to read because it'll help maybe give you some insight on what the role of a preacher is for sure. The first one actually has some Oklahoma ties. It's called The Preacher and His Work, and it's written by Jack Meyer. If I can get that to where it'll focus in. There we go. It's written, I have to get my face off of there before it does. Written by Jack Meyer, and this was from back in some of these, all the way back to like in the 1950s, where he spent some time at Central Christian College, which will later become Oklahoma Christian University, and did a bunch of lectures. Some were directed just toward preachers. Some were for all of the students there. But there's a lot of good material in these short lectures, basically about ministry and preaching and that type of thing. And again, just one of those books that I like to read through every now and again to remind myself of where I need to be in my ministry. And the other one is similar to it. It is called Fit for the Pulpit. Fit for the Pulpit is it's edited by Chris McCurley, but it has several guys in here, many of whom you would know, like our friend Niel Pollard and our friend Jeff Jenkins and Adam Fawn, who preaches right up the road from me. I'm actually getting to go speak in their summer series this year. Kirk Brothers is one of the authors of one of the chapters, but each of the chapters are written by a different minister, including Chris, who put all of this together, and then he wrote the last one as well. But each of these is the preacher and preacher in his time, his relationships, his discouragement, and so forth. There's different topics, and both of them, I think, are excellent reads. Probably should be mandatory reads for anyone who's preaching or in ministry, but it is also really good reads for people that are considering it for sure, but anyone in the congregation that wants to know more about, there's in any role in life, I think there's always the unknown. You don't really know what it's like to be a welder until you're a welder. And then it's not as glamorous as it looks, is it? All that anyone hears about is, hey, did you know they're paying this much an hour for someone to weld but they don't tell you about all the ways you have to contort your body to get to those places to weld for that per hour, how many times you're going to burn your hands and your eyes and those kinds of things when molten metal falls into your shoes and, whatever, you're doing a dance. But same thing with preaching is that, it's more than 4 hours a week. It's a lot of things behind the scenes that people don't know about, like any job. And I think it's good for anyone in the congregation to read these books to give them a little bit more insight. But anyway, those are two I would recommend.
Have not read the first one, but I have the second one, and I agree. It is an excellent, excellent book. All right, I think I am up, and I'm going to bring this one up. This one's in the spirit of what we are talking about today. This first one is right here, saving your marriage before it starts. That is a different cover, but I think it's actually the same book. Let me see if there's if I can get the cover of the one I have. There's several of these. There we go, right there. Saving Your Marriage Before It Starts. Before we got on here, this is by Doctors Les and Leslie Parrott. They wrote this several years ago. Before we got on here, we were kind of talking a little bit about premarital counseling and some of the things that we do within that. And this is one of those books that I have the couple that I'm going through. I have them read this, and it approaches marriage from a lot of different perspective. And I think it's a very interesting title, Saving It Before It Starts. So many people think that marriage, I say that there are a lot of people that are so excited about the wedding, and then when the wedding's over, it's now what do we do? And they haven't prepared for anything after the wedding. And the wedding is this, almost in a sense, a grand finale for a couple, and it really is the beginning. And so this goes through, and it actually talks about a number of things, a lot of myths that are out there about marriage, what you think about it, what it should be, what it shouldn't be. Tyler was actually telling me about some stuff that he had before, whenever he was going to do marriage counseling for someone and was given some material, and it was probably giving some information that shouldn't be given. There's a lot of myths out there, and it also presents a lot of very interesting things about how you think about your spouse whenever you go into that marriage. How you're expecting somebody to be like your mother or like your father, and they're not. They're a different person. So there's just a lot of really good stuff in here. It talks about your love languages, just a lot of different things and different love styles. There's a triangle idea that's in here that discusses the different types of love, passion, commitment, intimacy. So anyway, this is an excellent book. I highly recommend it for anybody, whether you are fixing to get married or you have been married for a long time. This is a great book to read. And the second one I do not have. It is not on Amazon yet, but it will be very soon. In fact, it is going to debut next week at the Excel Still More Bible Workshop, and it is our new Romans chapters 1 through 8 Excel series study. And I think it's backwards for you guys. But anyway, this is we're really proud of what we've put out here. This will go out first to all those who are at the workshop next week on the 24th through the 26th. But we've done some pretty cool stuff in here. Denny Petrillo, if you've ever read any of his stuff, is just excellent. He has all of his exegetical study in here that's broke out in a very simple fashion that will help you learn the text. Joe Wells does a great job with adding some application. For instance, as he looks at chapter 1, 16 through 17, he's entitled it, Acknowledge the Power of the Gospel. And he goes through and he makes some application for the power of the gospel. Chapter 3 and verse 10, recognize your need for God. So a lot of really cool stuff that Joe does in there for 8 chapters. And then we have the building sessions, which are actually a little bit different. This year, they are more about taking what Denny has done and then adding some things in there and breaking down the text even more, and then having a study on top of that in some activities that you can do individually or in a group setting. So it can be used for Bible class, it can be used for personal study, whatever it is that you would like to use that for. And then we have the New American Standard 95 update text in the back, and there's sermon seeds, all kinds of good stuff. This is our biggest book that we've done, and we're really excited about this one. So this will be hitting our website. It'll be on Amazon. It will be on Kyo Publications, who is our publisher, right after the workshop is over. So probably next week or the week after, this thing will go up for sale. So if you're looking to add to your workshop series set of books, or if you're looking for a great study, highly recommend, of course, what we've done here. Myself, Joe Wells, Billy Clabaugh, all in this. So excited about this new addition to it, and hope that it will help you. So there you go. There's my pitch. So I'll turn it over to you, Tyler.
Well, it's funny, Corey, as soon as he was saying that he's got books related to preaching, I thought, oh man, he's going to steal one of mine and I'm going to have to scramble and find another one. But thankfully, I guess there are tons of books on preaching, all sorts of different flavors. But one of my favorites is one that we had to read in school. It's called Man of God. I don't think I've recommended this yet, but incredible book. It's actually just a bunch of short essays, but I mean, some of the names on here are people that I know and love and consider to be incredible men. Warren Wilcox is on here. Many people know J.J. Turner, F. LaGard Smith, Stafford North, who was over at OC, Hugo McCord, Cecil May Jr., Jack P. Lewis. I mean, it could just go on. So
Is it this
really,
one?
really good book. What's that?
Is it this one right here on the screen? Let me go back.
No, if you put in Amazon Man of God and then Gospel Advocate, it'll pull it up. I was trying to figure out who's the author, but it's just this massive conglomeration of authors.
There it is.
Yeah. Matthis is going to be one of the Shawn Matthis. Yep. So you can get it from Amazon. You could probably call Gospel Advocate too, and they'll send it your way. But really, really good book. I mean, just preachers being honest in this book, which is great. And then
I almost did pull that one off. I almost did pull that one off my shelf. So,
well, that would have been fun.
Yeah.
My second one is a book called Deeper by Dane Ortland. This was one of the books. Fun fact, I hate book covers. And so if I get a book with one of those cheap paper covers that's like a laminate on it, first thing I'm doing is throwing that away. I hate them. They get in the way. This one even looks cool. I still hated it. This was a big part of our congregational theme last year of practicing spiritual disciplines and growing in them. Kind of creating a more than Sunday routine of Christianity. This book and several others went into that theme, but this one kind of walks you through how to grow deeper in your faith and in your spirituality, and how Jesus was one who is also growing deeper in that as well. So both of them, easy reads. They're both very short, very comprehensive, especially Man of God. That one moves quickly because they're just short essays by a bunch of different preachers. So those are my recommendations.
There you go. Excellent. Well, those all sound like very good books. We hope that those will help you. We will put those in the show notes and link all of those and put some information out about the Excel Still More book. Yeah, excellent stuff. So we hope that those will help you in your own walk. Well, guys, that takes us to our topic for the rest of our time together, and that is spending more time on the M than the DR. So for those watching who know what that means, or I guess more for those who are watching who may not know what that stands for, which is marriage, divorce, and remarriage, which is always a hot topic around probably not just the church, but probably a lot of different groups, maybe not all groups, but some groups. But this definitely is a hot topic. And so we felt that there was a necessity not to focus on this from a negative standpoint, but to try and help encourage marriages to grow and focus more on the marriage part of it, and untie from any bad behaviors or untie from any traditional thoughts that may look down negatively on this subject. So, guys, let's open it up for discussion. Where do you want to start with this, talking about the M in MDR?
Well, we can begin with that principle. I think too many times when we preach on MDR, what we mainly focus on is the DR. We talk about, divorce and, who is a candidate for remarriage and who is not. And if we spent, I think, more time on the M part, then maybe there'd be less DR around involved with things. But we need to help people in their marriages. We can talk about, basic principles that are in the Bible, but, as y'all know, you do premarital counseling, you do marriage counseling, you try to minister to couples, and, when life gets involved with things, there's real problems and there's real struggles, and trying to figure out how to navigate and work through those using biblical principles is challenging. But it's something that we need to do more of. It's kind of like what you alluded to earlier, I think, Garrett, in the premarital counseling side of things, and you talked about how we focus on the wedding more than the marriage. If we spend as much money, time, and energy getting ready for our marriage as we did our wedding, how much better would our weddings be? Our marriages be. But it's a maybe the biggest problem that as ministers, at least for me, that I face is, people that are struggling in their homes, struggling in their marriages in some way. And we need more preaching and teaching and counseling and communication and mentoring and discipleship about it, I think, for sure.
Yeah.
If I could give you one verse that would cure every marital problem.
Oh, man, our views just went up. One verse. Everybody's
Would that be interesting?
One verse.
So if you'll pull up the Bible, Garrett.
I'm pulling it up.
Garrett's the one that controls and if you'll go to 1 Corinthians.
Well, I need to actually. Well, for some reason, there we go.
One verse that will end all marital problems. In 1 Corinthians chapter 7 and verse 1, it's good for a man not to touch a woman, yours says. Some translation says it's good for a man not to get married. If we would just follow that verse, there'd be no marriage problems. Just don't get married. But that if you look on down in verse 28, he says that if you do marry, you're going to have troubles. And that's the reality of it. And he's talking about, I'm kind of yanking things out of context to be a little bit funny about this. But the reality is that if you get married, you're going to have problems. The only way to not have problems is to not get married. And so what do we do about it? Well, one of my favorite proverbs in the whole Bible is Proverbs chapter 14 and verse 4. In Proverbs 14 and verse 4, he says, where there's no ox, the manger is clean. And if you've ever dealt with livestock, you know that the problem with dealing with livestock is there's mess that you have to clean out the horse trailer, you have to clean out the stalls, you have to clean out the mangers, you have to clean out the feed box. So why would anybody put up with all of that? Well, because there's something good that comes from it. You know, if you ever go and gather fresh eggs, it's not like it looks like on the television shows where there's these pretty white eggs, because birthing is a messy process. Well, why in the world would you wash all those eggs and deal with all of that? Because a fresh egg tastes way better than a store-bought egg, you know. So the second half of that proverb, Proverbs 14 verse 4, is but abundant crops come by the strength of the ox. So in other words, if you don't want the trouble, don't have an ox, but you're also not going to have any food to eat. So it's worth the work because of the benefit. And probably most wives would not like us comparing them or our marriage to oxen, but the idea is the same. Is marriage work? Yes, it's work, but it's worth the work because of the blessing that comes out of that work when we do it the way that God intends for us to.
Well, you guys keep on talking because my camera went out, so I'm trying to get it back going.
Tyler, what do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. But I also think that there needs to be an evaluation in today's culture of a lot of people get married just for the sake of getting married, and that's so wrong. Anytime that I do premarital counseling, I'll give each person in the party a blank piece of paper, and I say, write down the 3 reasons why you want to get married. And it's interesting sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes they really have to sit there and think about it, almost like they've never thought about it before. It's like, well, good grief, you're getting married in 10 months or whatever. You ought to have something. And some couples are very quick. They'll write down their 3 reasons, and things go well from there. And I think the same thing with kids too. Some people have kids just because I want kids. It's like, well, but why? Right? We have to consider some of those things. And I think one of the biggest sources of either a dysfunctional marriage or dissatisfied partners is they've never really analyzed the why behind their marriage. Moreover, I think there's a huge theme within premarital counseling. A lot of people use the triangle diagram where you have God at the top and man and wife at the bottom. And as you grow closer to God, you're going to grow closer to each other, and you will love each other and who are easy to love as well. And the problem is people will replace God with something else, whether that's jobs or desires or even self. And now there's nothing up here, and they're only dwelling down here while maybe the other person is trying to grow closer to God. And of course, they're going to grow closer or farther apart from each other. And that causes a lot of problems. But again, I think this whole idea of focus back on your marriage. Natalie and I, at different times in our marriage, we've had to completely get rid of all social media. Now, we don't go as drastic as deleting our accounts, but we are just disciplined enough that we'll delete it on our phones. We don't have it on it's easy to hop on your web browser and type in Facebook and go and scroll, but we're very adamant about not doing that. Because what happens is we start focusing on so many other couples and what they have and what they're doing and what they're accomplishing. And it makes us feel bad about where we're at. And that's not good. That's not healthy. And so rather than looking at all these others, focusing on self and focusing on, okay, what can we do as a team, as a unified couple to allow ourselves to grow and develop in our marriage. When we lived in Highlands Ranch, Colorado, it was our first time being in a house together. We had moved out of my 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment that we lived in for, 6 or 7 months. And then we moved into this house in Highlands Ranch. And I remember at one point, and again, I lived in apartments for several years before getting married. So I'm not used to doing lawn work. And then growing up, my dad was always one who took care of doing the fertilizer and spraying for weeds. And we would mow as kids, but mowing isn't the only thing that you do to take care of a lawn. And I remember standing on our back porch, and our porch was kind of elevated to where you could see the other neighbors. And not only was the grass greener on the other side, it was greener all around us. I realized I had not been taking care of our lawn. I'd been mowing it, but I hadn't been taking care of it. And you talk about, the image of the grass is greener on the other side. Well, that pushed me to then saying, okay, I need to stop looking at theirs and I need to focus on what can we do for ours. And that's when you bring in the fertilizer and the seed and you up the watering amount and you figure out the right time in the morning to do your watering and all of that. A lot of marriages fall apart because, and I've said this, and I did premarital counseling yesterday, and I told them, typically the amount of attention that we spend on envying others is the amount of attention that is needed to fix the marriage that's going on right now. Unfortunately, we spend that attention envying others. And then when it comes time to focus on our marriage, we don't have that attention anymore. We've already spent it. But if we can nullify that and use or spend our attention on our own marriage, you'd be amazed at what can happen.
Yeah, and two, don't you think, I don't know, Garrett, if you're ready to jump in again too, but I'll pose this question, and if you want to get it, you can, and if not, Tyler, you can jump back in. But don't you think too, not only do we by the way, the question why is one of the most important questions we can ask on anything that we approach. Just ask why, But not only do we focus on other couples too much, but so many times when we want to change our marriage, we're focused on our spouse rather than ourselves. Yeah. And I want to change them rather than change me, or learn about them more so that I know how to better serve them and be what they need to be. Don't you think that's a big problem that we have too?
It is. It is. I think that's between you trying to change them and what you're trying to change them to be. I think that's what gets you confused. You have this image of what you want your spouse to be, but you're not even sure what that looks like. And some of that comes from, in many cases, you don't even know who you are. And right. So I know as I have grown, I've had to figure out who I am, and in many cases, I'm still figuring that out. But for so many people that I've talked to and studied with, they have this perception of who their spouse should be and what they should look like and what they should do, and a lot of that's based on the culture of the home that they grew up in. Right. And so we kind of push that on them, from maybe you came from, and sorry, I was working. I didn't get to hear a whole lot of the conversation earlier because I was trying to get my camera fixed. But so if I repeat something, I apologize. But when you think about the culture of where you came from, you might be a family that celebrated, all the holidays. You celebrated all the birthdays, and you were big vacation takers, and you have certain families who love Disney and they go to Disney all the time. You have certain families who go to the lake and they go, they do that all the time. So there's a culture that every family has, and then whenever you go into create your own family from that perspective, you're in many ways you're trying to push that culture on your own family, when the reality is that your spouse may never have celebrated birthdays. Maybe they didn't take vacations at all for whatever reason that might be. They couldn't, or or maybe they just didn't, right? I mean, certain families love birthdays, and certain families, it's not really that big a deal. So, you know, when you go into a relationship like that, pushing your culture on the other person is oftentimes one of the reasons that we're trying to change them to be what we want them to be and do the things that we want them to do. You know, so I think that culture plays a big part in that, you know, in that relationship, in wanting to change that other person for whatever reason. So at least that's something that go down this road. And if I repeated something, I apologize, but
no, you're fine. And I think too, you know, everybody thinks their in-laws, to go on what you're saying, everybody thinks their in-laws is weird. But guess what your spouse thinks about your family? They think you're weird. And it's not that anybody's weird. It's just that you do things differently. And part of, I think, with like premarital counseling, what I do, Tyler, you're in the middle of it right now, so you can tell us what you're doing, but it's trying to help them understand that you need to take the best from both sides of those cultures and put it together and create your own culture that fits the two of you.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that we had talked about yesterday in counseling was you're a team, and that means that you're not anyone else's team. You and your spouse are a team. But that also means, I think, and speaking with culture, Natalie has had some coworkers, and the reason why I say Natalie's coworkers is because my coworkers never do this, working in a church, and I'm glad that they don't. But Natalie's coworkers, especially at the old school that she was at up in Colorado in Jefferson County, the wives would come to school and just bash their husbands and just, I mean, up and down about how annoyed they are with their husbands and how they can't stand them and all this other stuff. And they have what they call she sheds out in the back, where it's a shed away from the house, and they'd go out there and drink wine and try and forget about their husbands. And like, what a terrible culture. Like, your marriage is supposed to complement your life, not contradict it. But especially the thing that we talked about yesterday in counseling is you've got to make a rule that you will never speak negatively about your spouse to people around you or to people outside your marriage. The culture is, got to go home to the ball and chain. And, you know, we've almost glamorized speaking negatively about spouses. And what may start out as a joke will then seep into a truism in your life. And that's terrifying.
Yes.
And again, this all goes back into, I think it was Ben Walker who told me. He said, the word divorce is a bad word in their marriage and in their family, that they will never say divorce. They will never talk about divorce. It's not even on the table. It's not for consideration. Well, so much of the discussion of MDR is who can get divorced, who can get remarried, and all this. It's like, how about you just stay married? And how about you work? Now, I understand that there are situations that are outside of our grasp and outside of our control. But a lot of discussions centering around MDR is all about the who and not about that. How can we fix this? How can we resolve things? I think God takes marriage and divorce so seriously because it's terminology that's brought up in the Old Testament, and it's terminology brought up in the New Testament about him and his people multiple times, especially in Judges, in Jeremiah, and some of the other prophets, especially Ezekiel. He will call out, the ESV uses, I think, the appropriate strong language. New American will say that you've played the harlot. ESV, and it's strong language, ESV says you have whored yourself out. Well, that's so strong, and that's striking against us when we read that in Scripture. God takes marriage so seriously because he is engaged in it every day, and way more than what we have. And he sees how horrifying it is when someone cheats on someone else. And I get that is a very detrimental thing. But for some of these other topics and reasons why people get divorced, we need to be focusing on how can we build stronger and better and more functional marriages.
Mm-hmm. So how do we do, I'm interviewing y'all because I think probably y'all are way better husbands than I am, and I'm trying to learn from you. But how do we do that? The rule of not speaking badly of our spouse. Garrett, what's some more rules that we need to have?
Well,
or you may have wanted to go a different direction. I don't know.
No, that's good. I'm one of the things that I really focus on, especially with premarital counseling and myself, is that there has to be boundaries. There are things that you can do and there are things that you can't do. And I think that we have got to be very aware of those for a number of reasons. But just simply from a marriage perspective, it is, if you look at this from, us being in ministry and all of us are very hard workers, it's so easy to get more involved in our work because we're passionate about it. It's easy for us to get involved in our work and forget about our wives and forget about our families in general. I say forget. Spend more time or focus on that. I think that needs to be a boundary that needs to be set. There has to be a boundary where I know certain people call them scruples. I know people like to use that word. That's not really in my vocabulary, but if you like that word, then use it. But I think there has to be boundaries in the relationships that you have outside of your wife, especially or for us, our wife, but for anybody. If you're a female, obviously to other males, and if you're a male to other females, there's got to be boundaries how you treat those relationships because, perception is a reality in some cases, at least in the minds of those who see it. And if you allow yourself to get too close or be to this or be to that, and you're not careful, then you can really harm your relationship with your wife. You can damage the trust of the people, and you can really hurt your spouse. So, setting boundaries with how you talk to other people of the opposite sex is very important. Not looking down on the other person and being negative. I think that has to be a boundary for our marriages. And man, I tell you what, when you really get stressed and a lot of things are going on and maybe money's tight, it's easy to be negative about things. And you tend to take that out on your spouse if you're not careful. And I think that's got to be a boundary that somehow you've got to turn everything off when you walk in the door. Those are just a few things that I think are don'ts, right? They're do's and don'ts. You've got to have boundaries for other relationships, boundaries for your attitude, things of that nature. I don't know if that answers the question or not, but that's one thing that comes to mind for me.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about this too because not only for mine, I love the fact that you said what you focus on in premarital counseling and me. I love it actually when I've got this pulled up. I'm gonna see if I can. I've never tried to do this before. I'm gonna see if I can share my screen with y'all.
Oh, great!
No, Google Chrome is required. I'm just gonna send it to you, and if you want to put it up there, you can, or you don't have to, Garrett. But I love it when couples ask me to do their premarital counseling because I get to work through that material and it reminds me, like I'll come home sometimes after doing a premarital counseling session and as soon as I walk in the door, I'm like, I'm sorry, Melody. And she's like, what? And I'm like, oh, what we studied about tonight. I'm terrible at it, and I also like it because sometimes when they ask me, I don't know if you've gotten that picture yet or not, but sometimes when people ask me to marry them, they bring me stuff. So like this is a couple that I'm fixing to start their premarital counseling. They're getting married this fall, but they brought me a German chocolate cake and had this written on there, will you marry us? And you're not required to do that if you'd like me to do your marriage ceremony. but it is a nice touch.
It's
but
preferred.
It is preferred. So, Tyler, if you don't mind sharing with these, you were talking about how simplistic you've gotten your premarital counseling. You said there were 3 things you focused on. What are those 3 things?
Yeah. Teamwork, sacrifice, enjoy your marriage. Teamwork, there's a lot that goes into that. Obviously, working as a team, you've got to be on the same page. So a lot of communication. You've got to be working together with the same goals, the same aspirations. I've also kind of brought in this aspect of practice. Anyone who's ever played sports or has been on a team knows how important it is to practice. Unfortunately, I think we miss a big opportunity that's given to us with fights or disagreements, where we blow up and then we allow some time and we think that time has healed things, and then we move on without addressing it or just barely talking about it. And I brought up yesterday, Albert Einstein talks about how the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Well, if we do the same things over and over and expect that things are going to happen differently, we're insane. So I talked about with teamwork, you have this idea of practice. Okay, if there is a disagreement and it causes somewhat of a falling out or time where we need to spend time apart, let's come back together and assess, okay, where did things go wrong and how can we fix that? And practice, work on that, and then come back. And next time that there's a disagreement, maybe you'll be better about disagreeing. The second thing being sacrifice. You've got to sacrifice your time or their time, desires. You've got to sacrifice some of your pursuits. And I think that there's a time where you sacrifice finances, where, yeah, maybe this job promotion would give you a better salary, but is it what your marriage needs? And will it be good for your marriage? And then the last thing that I focus on is enjoy your marriage. Way too often we have bought into the world's culture, I would argue. I don't think it's just Western culture. I think it's world culture, that marriage is grueling and it's this fight and you have to battle it every single day. And when you come home, you just are back in the trenches. No, absolutely. I mean, marriage should be enjoyed. And I know that Nat and I have only been married for 4.5 years, but good grief, we've loved our 4.5 years. And we're excited for more of those years, and we look forward to those. And I'm not saying that we just have a perfect marriage, and hopefully in 20 years, I'll be saying the same thing, and hopefully in 50 years, I'll be saying the same thing. But I've seen couples, some of our mentors, I think having mentorship too with marriages help out a lot, but some of our mentorship, Corey, seeing you and Melody and how much you enjoy being married.
Yeah.
That's made a huge impact on us. Garrett, I'm sure I would say the same thing, but I lived in Corey's basement for the better part of half a year.
That
So
explains
I was,
so much, by the way.
I was full witness to it. But there are so many couples in the church who I look around and I see, and they're loving their marriage and they love their spouse, and it's such a blessing. And the narrative of the world is, oh, the work of marriage. And I'm not saying that marriage is easy, but when you practice and when you sacrifice and when you work on it, man, it's a blessing. And I think that's something that we need to keep on our minds too, is contrary to what the world says, you can enjoy your marriage. And not only can you, you should enjoy your marriage.
We've oftentimes like defined a good marriage is you just don't get divorced. But there's an expectation, I think, from God. Look how many times, that he'll talk about enjoying the wife of your youth and that kind of thing, that there's an expectation. He wants us to enjoy it, not just stay together, but stay together and enjoy it.
There is a picture. I'm trying to find it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it. But there is a picture that I took a number of years ago at the Lads to Leaders Convention. I don't know if this couple would be happy I took the picture or not, because they didn't know. And it wasn't, nothing creepy, all right? But we used to have lots of leaders at the Gaylord Texan in Grapevine, Texas. And there was, if you've ever been there, you know that you go to the convention center to your hotel rooms. It's a walk. And so I'm walking through the atrium, and there is a couple that's in front of me. And they're probably at that time, maybe late 60s, early 70s, if I were just to judge it. And the whole way, I was in such a hurry. I'm not going to be able to find it. I wish I could. I was in such a hurry to get, because I was judging, and I had to get to where I was going. And so I'm trying to get around these folks like, would you guys move? Taking up the whole deal. But I finally slowed down and was just like, this isn't going to happen, and I'm not going to be rude. So, at a spiritual convention. But when I slowed down, I don't know why, but when I slowed down, I started to watch them. And they held hands the whole way. And they were talking like nobody else was in that place. And I took a picture, and I've used them as a sermon illustration since that point. That's been 15 years ago, maybe. And it was just so awesome to see that couple. Like, me going to them, looking at this very negatively. I've got to get where I'm going. You guys are in my way. And those two, probably just like the first day that they were a couple, nobody else was there. It's just them. And that's the partnership that I think you were talking about to a degree there, Tyler, that, it's just amazing to see that after X amount of years, you still enjoy one another. One of the funnest things for me, the best things for me, and my best days as a person, period. So everything that includes is when Kristen and I are laughing together. Those are the best days. And she's hilarious. And she gets to laughing really hard, and it gets even funnier. But yesterday, just like yesterday, I had to laugh at this. I was texting somebody my address because they were shipping something to me, and I clicked on her. I texted her by accident. I sent my address, and she goes, "I know your address," and that was it. And then put a laughy face after. And I just, in the moment, it was so funny to me, like that. Why? That's what you would say, like, "Who are you trying to text?" Might be no. She's like, "I know your address." And it was just, between us, it was very funny. And she just has this way of bringing joy into a room. She's a lot better minister than me. That's just no question in my mind. She gets along with people, and she connects with people in a wonderful way. And she teaches me most of the time what I should be doing, especially when I'm not doing it, just by way of example. But, we can when we're laughing together, when we're enjoying each other like that, it's such a great thing. And it's just an awesome blessing to my life. It makes my day better. It makes my work better. It makes everything just better. And, part of what I tell, new couples whenever I'm doing counseling with them is first, nothing is ever as bad as it seems. Mm-hmm. You can work through anything. Stuff might be pretty bad, but oftentimes, maybe not every time, but oftentimes we make things worse in our minds than they actually are. So not everything is as bad as it seems. And two, let loose. Don't be so serious and enjoy one another. Because, man, it's so easy to do that, to be serious all the time, and you don't enjoy one another. And, I've probably been the harder one in the relationship. She's dragged me along and helped me to grow in numerous ways when nobody else could, and I'm just so thankful to her for that. But those are two things I think are important as you go throughout life. Just laugh together, and I feel like that's what that couple did. They just enjoy being around one another. Don't know anything about them. Didn't know their name. I don't know that I've ever seen them since. But that moment in time, I still remember, and they have no idea. It was just a great example that they set.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, one of the things I always suggest to couples, especially in premarital counseling, is you always hear about bucket lists. What's on your bucket? Well, that was on my bucket list to go, whatever.
yeah,
To put together a marriage bucket list. That these are some things, and I tell them, little things and big things. I want to get a slip and slide and go in the backyard and do slip and slide with you, or I want to go, hike a 14er in Colorado, or I want to go to the Swiss Alps or whatever, and then post it in your bedroom, on the mirror of the dresser, or even put it in a frame. And it's nice because you can look at those things and you can check them off over the years. You can edit it and add more things to it as you go. You can say, here's one that we had. Why don't we save up for that one? And even when you're working hard to save, you're enjoying, the anticipation of, all right, we're saving up to check that one, but it's so easy to get in the monotony of going through the routine, kind of like the Dunkin' Donuts man on the old commercials, and we just kind of take each other and our time together for granted. And I think all the things you all are talking about are really important for us to understand when we're talking about how do we make the M better, And one other thing I want to say before, I don't know how much longer we're going to be talking, but I want it to be said is there's probably some people listening to this that are single. And we sometimes make like Christianity and marriage like you have to have one to have the other kind of deal, but there's places for you too. And we need to do better, I think, at when we're doing events and whatnot to minister to our single members, whether they've never been married or they're divorced or they're widowed or whatever it might be. But, we sometimes, it's a good thing that I don't think of Tyler. I think of Tyler and Natalie. I think of them as a couple, but I also need to realize that once someone is not a couple, or if they've never been a couple, that doesn't make them less of an asset. So anyway, I wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah. Well, and another thing that I just thought about was everybody has different stages of life.
Yes.
Too. And, us three kind of represent three different stages. Tyler's entering into being a father, and which is so awesome. And I've got one out of the house and a grandchild, but I've got three boys at home. And you have one boy at home, but you have two that are out of the house and married. And so, from an early standpoint, if you're just a couple and you don't have any children, it's easy to just be with one another. Get done with work, it's just you two. You guys hang out, whatever. And then, of course, later in life when the children are out of the house, it's kind of the same thing. But like for us, for Kristen and I right now, we're three different places all the time with three boys doing three different things. They're very involved in a lot of stuff, whether it's, here at church or in sports or whatever, so the busyness of life really can make things hard to spend time with one another. And so Kristen and I aren't always successful at this, but we do try, to go to lunch together and, have that little bit of time together. We'd say, let's go out to dinner, but half the time we're at a baseball field till 10, 11 o'clock. So yeah, we're spending time together with about, however many other people around a fence, but different stages of life mean different things, and you have to adjust. You have to figure out ways, and I fail more times than I'm successful. If I were to rate myself as the best husband in the world, it would be, a 0 probably. But, you have to continuously work at your marriage and work to make time for one another. And it's not always easy. And you just have to be intentional. We like to use that word, but you have to be intentional about your spouse and recognizing that while you are at this stage in life, that they still mean the world to you. And here's something else, and then I'll be quiet. There is an order, I believe, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but there's an order, I believe, to relationships you have to have in life. And this order is very important. God is always number one. He'll never be number two, never number three. Jesus talks about that in Matthew 10. He's number one. But secondly, is your spouse. Your spouse is number two. It's not your children. It will never be your children. It has to be your spouse. Number three is your children. If you have those backwards, where your children are two and your spouse is three, that's what oftentimes leads to separation. That leads to more hardship. Spouse has to be two, children three, and church four. And I know that sounds weird, and you guys may agree or disagree with me, but my family has to come first. My wife is the second most important relationship to me in this world. My children are next, and the church and everything else is after that. That has to do with responsibility. It has to do with the unity of whenever, God's the one that brought you two together. And it has to remain in that order. If any of that gets out of whack, it can damage the top two relationships in your life and can create hardship and damage you spiritually, emotionally in a lot of different ways. And it makes things harder. So understanding that order, I think, is very important. So.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, and when we get those, anything that we get priorities out of order, we're going to mess things up. If I try to, as important as the home is, if I put my children, my spouse above God, I'm not saying you can't be a good husband or a good father without biblical principles, but whatever is good about your husbandship or your fathership are really biblical principles, whether you recognize them as biblical principles or not. Yeah. But one of the things, it did not hit me until not very long ago, really. In Ephesians 5, where we talk about husbands loving your wife as Christ loved the church and gave himself for it, we kind of stop there. The sentence doesn't stop there, but we kind of stop there. And I ought to be willing to sacrifice anything for my spouse. But the next statement that he makes is that he might sanctify her by the washing of water with the word. Well, I don't know that, we often think about, are we immersing our spouse in the Word of God, so that he might present the church in all its glory? Do we think about how we're going to present our marriage, our spouse before God? You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Well, it's little things like that of if that relationship with God is where it needs to be, then there's certain things that are going to be true of our home that wouldn't ordinarily be so. And at the end of all this, he says, I'm not really talking about marriage. I'm talking about the church, because he's explaining it to people that didn't understand the church. We usually use that text to talk about marriage because we don't understand marriage, but the fact that God uses that relationship to compare to Jesus and the church ought to tell us about how important that it should be to us, and how hand in hand those things ought to be, our relationship with God and our relationship in our home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Marriage is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. And I know a lot of our listeners will agree with that. But some who might be struggling in their marriage for one reason or another, you might think that way. It's not a bad thing. But it all starts with you being the part that you should be within the marriage. Internal focus is what you have to.
I'm starting with the man in the mirror.
There you go. We're not even.
You would think we go to
this stuff.
You wouldn't think we go to Michael Jackson for marriage advice, would you?
Well, you never know what you're going to get here. I'm sorry I cut you off, Tyler.
Oh, you're fine. And we could probably start wrapping up too. You know it's time to wrap up when Corey starts singing. It's the warning shot.
Man.
I know.
It's right there in the heart. I mean, it's good stuff.
I always tell the college students too, from being a college minister, I work with a lot of people who aren't married yet. And I'll encourage them. We talk a lot about the Proverbs 31 woman and trying to find her. We also need to talk about the Proverbs 21 woman and how you need to stay away from her. Otherwise you live. And I always find it comedic. I don't know if it's supposed to be taken this way in Proverbs, but a man who is living on the corner of his rooftop because he doesn't want to be with a contentious woman. I don't know. I guess to kind of wrap everything up, to have our weekly anchor here. Corey, you mentioned Ephesians 5. I think a parallel, but maybe something that has to do a little bit more with marriage is Colossians 3:18 and 19. What I love about the context of Colossians 3 is he's talking about you are a new person. You are a created, totally different than the way that you were living. You are to have kindness and love, and you're supposed to get rid of all of these evil things in your life. Take those off, put on Christ. And that brings us all the way back up to Colossians 3:2, to set your mind on the things of heaven, not the things of the earth, to get rid of that carnal, that physical, wicked way of living and be a heavenly being on this earth. But then you get to 3:18 and 3:19, and Paul is going to talk about, it's interesting how much Paul talks about marriage. And maybe that should, I don't know, speak something to our lessons as ministers. But 3:18, he says, wives, be subject to your husbands as is fitting in the Lord. Wives, be tasso to your husbands. The Greek word tasso, be determined to your husbands. Be devoted to your husbands as is fitting in the Lord. And we don't like that idea of submission or devotion or even allegiance because it creates a boundary, or at least it kind of puts us in a box. Well, why? Well, he's going to talk about that in 19. Verse 19, husbands, love your wives, agape your wives, be self-sacrificing towards your wives. We talk a lot about the sacrifice of Jesus on the cross, but Jesus didn't just die on a cross. He lived for us too. He left that domain in heaven and came to this earth and lived in this earth. And that was part of the big sacrifice of Christ, is that he lived for us. Husbands, do the same thing. Don't just be willing to die for your wife. That's easy. If I had to jump in front of a bullet to save Natalie, that's an easy decision. No problem. I'll do it all day. Now, living for your wives and sacrificing for your wives, that takes a lot more. But then look what else he says. Do not be embittered against them. You know what that word means for embittered? Embittered. Stop being bitter toward your wife. And it's amazing. Like what Garrett was saying earlier, loosen up a little bit. Don't take things so seriously. Enjoy your marriage. Enjoy your wife. So these two verses, wives, be determined to your husbands. Don't be looking around. Don't be discontent with what's going on. And husbands, because your wife is going to be looking to you and being submissive to you, you've got a call too. And that call is to man up, sacrifice, and don't be embittered against your wives.
I love how all that's connected in verse 17. Whatever you do, do all in the name of the Lord. These are things that you're doing in the name of the Lord, because, being subject to your husband is fitting for the Lord. Children, it's well-pleasing to the Lord. So, yeah, great thoughts, man. Excellent stuff.
And I love the idea of I will die for my wife, but will I actually live my life for her?
Mm-hmm.
Well, go back, 60 years and be like, well, if she has dinner on the table,
Yeah.
I will die for her. That's when the hand comes across. And
That's when she buys you a griddle. Put a bow
right.
on this whole thing.
Yeah.
and says,
And
I'm
it's
never
almost-
cooking again because he loves to cook.
I wonder
try
if
not
the
to burn it.
inventor- Yeah. I wonder if the head of the Blackstone, the CEO, I'd be tickled to death if it was a woman. Reverse psychology. This man thinks that I'm the only one who can cook in the house. I'll just make it manly to cook. Call it Blackstone. Put it outside.
He likes to be outside. He likes metal. He likes to cook. Let's put all these three things together. Show him.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally fool him.
Yeah.
But if she was really thinking it through, she'd have put a deep fryer on one end of it too.
That's
so,
right.
You
She
know,
would have done that.
And a smoker.
And a smoker.
and a smoker.
A rotisserie. I mean, it'd all be on there.
Yep.
Oh, man. Well, guys, it's been a great for me. Hopefully, all of you who are listening today, we pray that this has been a good conversation for you. Marriage is important, and that's why we wanted to talk about this. I think part of the whole MDR, the reason we put it in there is we need to untie from the negative thoughts of marriage, and we need to untie from only thinking about that subject from a divorce perspective or anything else. When you get married, stay married. And that's what the Bible teaches. And you can't just get out of marriage for whatever reason. And you can't just get married for whatever reason. So when you get married, make it count. That's just the best way. Even when we look at elders, a one-woman man is very important. And so before we get off here, Tyler, how long have you been married? I know you said it, but I'm
4.5 years.
4.5 years. Corey, what are you?
This September will be 29 years.
29. December will be 20 for us. So very cool. Very cool. Well, if you're tuning in, share with us how long you've been married. Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. My grandparents just celebrated, I believe it was 65 years
Wow.
this week. So, Tyler, my Aunt Wanda, she, I think, went over and cooked them a meal. So, yeah, pretty cool. So, marriage is awesome. And we hope that this has been blessing to you. Share with us. We want to know how long you've been married. We always think it's very cool to see the number of years that you've been together, and look at that as a celebration about your time and your life that you spent together. And so share it with us. We want to know. And I don't know, maybe if we've got the biggest number, maybe we'll do a giveaway or something. I don't know. We'll throw that out there. But before we hop off here, we do want to share with you again. We've been promoting the Excel Still More Bible Workshop. That is April 24th through the 26th at the Quartz Mountain Lodge. We are studying Romans 1 through 8. We hope that you will come and join us. We've got special sessions with John Moore, Carla Moore, Bob Turner, Michael Height, and then Denny, Petrillo, Joe Wells, and myself will be teaching as well. It's a great time if you're really wanting to get into deep Bible study and learn Romans from multiple aspects. From the city, from a leadership perspective, from the text to application to how we can put all this into practice. The workshop is for you. We've got room for you. Just go to our website, excelstillmore.net, or get registered. $65 for the workshop, $30 for the special sessions. It will be worth it, I promise you. So come and be with us. Schedules on the website, all that good stuff. Plenty of places to stay. Discounts on the rooms, everything. So we really want to encourage everybody to come down and spend the weekend with us while we're there. Well, we do thank you for joining us for another episode of the UNTIED Podcast. This is Season 2, Episode 11. Next week, we are going to be doing another big picture episode. So the last two have been spent in the Thessalonian letters. Who knows where we will wind up next? So, we'll put it out there, I guess. If you have somewhere you want us to go, send it our way, and we'll talk about that. Otherwise, we'll talk about whatever we want to, and hope you'll enjoy it. But we want to definitely approach the things that you want to discuss. So until next time, thank you so much for watching this or listening to it. We hope that you'll continue to go on this journey with us, that you'll like, share, subscribe, and follow our podcast on whatever platform that you're on. Subscribe to Excel TV if you want to see this and listen to it before anyone else. Those folks get the first dibs on everything. So check that out. And guys, we just hope that you will continue in your walk with the Lord, that He'll bless you in your walk. Focus on Him. Focus on your marriages, and you'll be blessed for doing those things. So thank you for joining us today. And until next time, stay untied.